him one of the 4 best swingers on the entire tour. He won 13 times. He played in 3 Ryder Cups. He led the tour in scoring average. He was also fined, suspended, sued, and nearly thrown out of professional golf by the very organization he represented. The most talented man in the room, the most dangerous man in the room. Same person, same career, same unfiltered mouth. This is that story. Dave Hill grew up in Jackson, Michigan, a small town about 40 miles west of Ann Arbor. His father worked at the post office, picked up shifts at the local factory, and did freelance accounting on the side. His mother raised 6 children. The family also owned a 60-acre farm where the kids tended the vegetable patch, baled hay, and looked after cattle, pigs, and horses. There was nothing glamorous about it. You worked, or things did not get done. By his own account, Dave was not a remarkable child. He was small, quiet, and he stuttered badly all the way through the 8th grade. That made him a target. In his memoir, Teed Off, he wrote, "The other kids picked on me because I stuttered badly in school until the 8th grade from nervousness. The stuttering made me a terrible loner, which caused the bullies to pick on me all the more. The only person who consistently had his back was his younger brother, Mike, who, despite being the junior, threw a left hook that kept most trouble away." What saved Dave was geography. The family property sat right next to Jackson Country Club. At 9 years old, he started caddying there under the guidance of his older brother, George. The club pro cut down a set of clubs to fit him. On Monday mornings, caddy day, he played. He had no formal instruction. He learned entirely by watching better players and copying what he saw. That self-taught swing would one day be called one of the finest in professional golf. But first, it would get him into more trouble than anyone on tour had ever seen. Dave Hill turned professional in 1958 at the age of 21. Within his first year, he won the Michigan Open. By 1961, he had his first PGA Tour victory at Tucson and had already managed to spend nearly half the prize money on fines. "I paid something like $1,400 in fines, most of them for snapping clubs. It cost me $100 per broken club," he later wrote. That $1,400 was almost exactly half of his first place check. Most players celebrated their first tour win. Hill paid a bill. The breaking of clubs was not random frustration. It was a pattern, and the tour warned him repeatedly. Then came November of 1963, and everything got worse. His father had died earlier that year, and Hill was not in a stable place. At the Frank Sinatra Open Invitational, he was in the middle of one of the worst stretches of his career on the greens. Before playing the final hole, he walked up to tour director Joe Black and made an announcement. If he missed the birdie, he would break his club. Black told him not to do it. Hill replied, "I just promised myself I would." He missed. He snapped the club clean over his knee on national television after having been warned by an official moments before. The tour suspended him for 2 months. 3 years later, at the Thunderbird Classic, Hill missed the cut badly. On the final hole of his round, his playing partner, Gardner Dickinson, asked what he had made. Hill replied, 8 or 108. Dickinson wrote down 8. Hill picked up the pen, added a 10 in front of it, and signed for a second round score of 178. 2-round total, 257 strokes. He was not losing his mind. He simply did not care what anyone thought, and that combination in a professional setting was going to cost him everything. By the end of 1968, Dave Hill had won 4 times on the PGA Tour. On paper, that looked like a respectable career, but Hill knew something was wrong. He was burning through opportunities faster than he was collecting them, fined, suspended, and alienating everyone around him. He later told Sports Illustrated, "I was very unhappy, or very insulting, or downright nasty. The game did not need my type of personality because I made too many enemies. I knew that." He was not injured, he was not broke, He was simply unraveling, and he could see it happening in real time. Then his wife stepped in, not with an argument, not with an ultimatum. She waited until the end of the year, then quietly moved every single one of his golf clubs into a neighbor's garage. Hill came home and found nothing. No clubs, no explanation, just an enforced silence. He was away from the game for 2 months. Looking back, Hill called it the best thing that could have happened to me. The break did not fix his personality. It never would. But it gave him enough distance to return to competition with something he had been missing for years, a measure of calm. What followed was the best season of his career. In 1969, Hill won 3 tournaments in the space of 6 weeks during June and July: the Memphis Open, the Buick Open, and the IVB Philadelphia Open, the last of which he claimed in a playoff. He finished second on the full season money list. He won the Vardon Trophy for the lowest scoring average on tour, 70.3 4-strokes per round, and he earned his first Ryder Cup selection. Jack Nicklaus, at the peak of his own dominance, acknowledged that Hill had one of the 4 best swings on the entire tour. This was what Dave Hill looked like when he got out of his own way. The talent had always been there. The question was never whether he could play. The question was always whether he would let himself. In the summer of 1970, the U.S. Open came to Hazeltine National Golf Club in Minnesota. The course was only 8 years old at the time, a Robert Trent Jones design built on flat farmland outside Minneapolis, still growing in, with blind shots and awkward rooting that most of the field quietly disliked. Quietly being the key word. Most players kept their opinions inside the locker room. Dave Hill was not most players. After a strong second round put him near the top of the leaderboard, the press requested comments. Hill declined and went to the bar instead. By the time they asked again, he had worked through 4 or 5 vodka tonics on an empty stomach. He went. The first question was about the golf course. "I'm still looking for it," he said. He did not stop there. He told reporters that Robert Trent Jones had ruined a perfectly good piece of farmland. He said the course lacked only 80 acres of corn and a few cows to be exactly what it was before anyone built anything on it. He said Jones must have had his blueprints upside down. And then, perhaps the most remarkable detail of the entire week, Hill announced that he had already arranged to borrow a tractor from a nearby farmer. If he won the tournament, he planned to ride it out onto the course during the trophy ceremony. The PGA Tour fined him $150 for, in their words, criticism that tends to ridicule and demean the club. The members of Hazeltine had a different response. They mooed at him. Throughout all 4 rounds, whenever Hill walked onto a hole, sections of the gallery mooed and rang cowbells. The sounds followed him around the course for the entire week, and then followed him to other tournaments for years afterward. Hill finished the week in second place, 7 strokes behind Tony Jacklin. He did not apologize. Years later, reflecting on the whole episode, he wrote, "I'm sure I could have been more discreet in my remarks to the press. I never said anything at Hazeltine that wasn't an answer to a newsman's question, and for that, I was crucified." What Hill always maintained, and what made the story more complicated than it first appeared, was that he was not saying anything the other players were not already saying privately. His brother Mike confirmed it years later. What he said about Hazeltine was the absolute honest-to-God truth. Players like Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus and Gary Player sat in the locker room and laughed. They knew it was true, but because of them not wanting to be involved, they would never say it. Hazeltine was eventually redesigned from the ground up before it was trusted to host another men's major in 1991. The course that exists today is considered one of the finest in the United States. Dave Hill was right. He was just the only one who said it out loud. In the summer of 1971, Dave Hill arrived at the Colonial National Invitation in Fort Worth, playing some of the worst golf of his career. By the end of Friday's round, he had shot 77 and 85 and was hopelessly out of the tournament. Walking toward his drive on the final hole, he decided he had seen enough. He played the last few holes with only his 9-iron. When his approach left him in a greenside bunker with an ugly lie, Hill picked the ball up with his hand, walked it onto the green, and tapped in. He then signed an incorrect scorecard and disqualified himself. The tour fined him $500 for conduct unbecoming a professional golfer and told him the fine had to be paid before he could tee it up the following week. Hill paid it. Then he filed a $1 million antitrust lawsuit against the PGA Tour. The tour responded by placing him on probation for 1 year. Hill responded by raising his damages claim to $3 million. At the center of his argument was something he had believed for years, that the tour applied its rules selectively depending on who you were. He said it plainly. I firmly believe there is prejudice in applying the rules and regulations of the tour and fining people. The rules aren't the same for Dave Hill or Ray Floyd as they are for Jack Nicklaus or Arnold Palmer. If you're a big name, you're protected when you have a little temper tantrum. The lawsuit dragged on for months before both sides settled out of court. Hill later reflected, I really think I could have won the suit, but I didn't want it on my mind anymore. I'm a golfer, not a political rabble-rouser. But the settlement was not nothing. Hill walked away having secured 11 specific concessions from the tour, including the establishment of a clearer, more consistent system for how fines were applied across the entire field. Every player who came after him benefited from that fight. Most of them never knew his name was behind it. After the lawsuit settled, Hill won 6 more times across the rest of the 1970s. One of those victories came at the Houston Open in 1974, a tournament he entered publicly, stating he was there to get even with the Houston Golf Association after they had refused to let him withdraw the pand previous year. He shot a final round of 65 and won by a stroke. Then he told the press he disliked talking to them. But the wins were becoming harder to sustain. The fines, the suspensions, the feuds, they had accumulated into something heavier than any one incident. By the late 1970s, Hill had largely disappeared from the PGA Tour. Not because of injury, not because the talent had gone. His brother Mike later said the bad temper and the confrontations had simply worn the game down for him. He was gone for nearly 9 years. Then, in 1987, at the age of 50, Dave Hill walked onto the senior PGA Tour. He won that same year. He won 3 more times in 1988 and twice more in 1989. 6 senior tour titles in 3 years from a man who had been absent from competitive golf for nearly a decade. And still, he had not finished making headlines. At a practice session before the 1991 Transamerica Senior Championship, Hill was working at one end of the driving range when J.C. Snead began hitting shots from the other end. The balls repeatedly rolling into Hill's area. Hill shouted warnings. Snead kept going. Hill picked up a club and charged at him. The 2 men threw punches, wrestled each other to the ground, and had to be physically separated by caddies and fellow players. Dave Hill was 54 years old. Some people mellow with age. Hill was simply not built that way. Dave Hill finished his career with 13 PGA Tour victories, 6 Senior Tour titles, 3 Ryder Cup appearances, and the Vardon Trophy. He never won a major. His brother Mike said that was the one thing that never left him. His biggest disappointment was not winning the U.S. Open like he felt he should have. In 1977, he published Teed Off alongside Golf Digest editor Nick Seitz. In it, he evaluated his fellow professionals one by one with the same candor he had applied to everything else. On the state of the modern touring pro, he wrote, "The average touring golf pro today is living off the fat of the land and thinks the world owes him $200,000 a year. Most pros couldn't do anything else for a living, but they always have their hands out looking for a freebie. Instead of saying thank you, they want to know what time the next plane is leaving." Nobody was spared. Nobody was softened. What the book also revealed, underneath all the sharpness, was a man who understood the game at a deep level and had thought carefully about it for his entire life. One line in particular stayed with readers long after the controversies faded. The golf swing is like sex. You can't be thinking about the mechanics of the act while you are performing. Dave Hill died in September of 2011 in Jackson, Michigan, the same town where he had grown up beside a golf course, learned to swing by watching